Howdy, folks. This is the fifth episode of the Cheese Show. Yesterday was National Cheese Day, so celebrating that a little bit today. I guess we can talk about our favorite flavor of that delicious dairy product. And today with me, I have Nick as a guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Nick.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Nick, and I don't really know what people usually talk about on this show. I assume you're political based on the fact that you have Politico showing up on the screen right now. So I am I guess you could say I'm a former conservative. Uh, Not that I've gone liberal, just the conservatives have seemed to gone left. I have a family, I've got a couple of kids, a wife, working on more kids, and that's about it, unless you have some other questions for me.
No, that was a great introduction. Maybe we can elaborate a little further on, I guess, we can kind of jump topics a little bit because the thing that I was looking at is I saw that hands off my birth control is in the current discussion, and I remember a while ago people were talking about the fact of like, oh, the reversal of Roe v. Wade is gonna introduce all these slippery slope things. I mean, one of the ridiculous things they brought up was no more like mixed race marriages, and then there was a couple other things that they tried to like bring up that like, oh no, Roe v. Wade was protecting those things, and now it's not. One of the things they talked about was access to birth control, which I don't even know what that means, but I feel like in terms of what they're talking about, that is, I don't know. I feel like everybody putting zero votes towards that should be kind of seen as, is that not conservative?
Well,
Or
I'm surprised you haven't heard of the big push to end mixed race marriages. Um, the I would say that's conservative, but it's not like conserving something that should have been. It's more like rolling. That's like the one victory we've had in what, 50 years. We're rolling one thing back to the way that it should be, and I commend that, but simultaneously those same politicians will stand up on a podium and wave around a LGBTQ flag while pretending to be conservative. But I guess that's the new culture, and a conservative's job is to conserve the culture or conserve whatever it is. And so now that's the thing that they're conserving. So that's where I'm saying things have certainly shifted to the left.
that's fair. I mean, you have people like Tim Pool now that's like joining the at least like the Republican Party. I don't know about the so-called conservative party because all the time on his show he always claims that he's he's like, no, I'm very liberal with this or I'm very liberal with that. So,
Hmm.
or I don't know about progressive at least, but I mean, it's funny to see like Nancy Pelosi is a self-proclaimed Christian. I don't know if she's Catholic. I know that she's definitely a Christian, and her being one of the people that like, birth control is a good thing, blah blah. But it's like, I don't know. I've heard the Christian argument at least that like, well, you know, God created the idea, therefore it's a good thing. But I mean, if you go really crazy into history, you can kind of see that humans didn't learn every single thing from just God Himself. I guess like there's been other influences. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, God created, if you want to think about it, God created everything. Therefore, God created the concept of murder. But there's some pretty specific things in the Bible about how that's not a good thing, and if you really want to, I guess, go down the line with where your moral or ethical compass is, or maybe where your biological understanding is, I'm not going to make a value judgment on here necessarily one way or another, but some people would view that as murder if we're talking about Roe v. Wade. Other people might not. Um,
Right.
but but there is a really big tent ability within Christianity, and I think largely because um, Christianity is being absorbed by those with left wing ideals now, for the purpose of usurping it and almost destroying it. As is, I mean, as will be Islam and anything else that finds its way into America in 2024.
Yeah, I mean that's always my biggest issue at least. Well, I'd like to at least think that like whenever having like political discussions or arguments and all that, the thing that I always try to go is like, okay, let's lay down the groundwork. Let's get some definitions out of the way. And sometimes we can't even agree on what definitions are. Like one of my biggest issues is the like foundation of rights. And you almost can't argue with um anybody on the merit that like rights are God given. It's like no, no, no. Like the government establishes those. And like the idea of inalienable rights to some people at least doesn't make any sense. And I don't get that. I've tried to, but it's a clash of worldviews to then try and understand that like there's a difference in just even basis.
Well, at the end of the day, and this isn't really disagreeing with you, but rights are just what the current group of people say the rights are. And a different group of people in a different dimension or a different country or whatever might articulate that they also have God given rights, but if their culture is different and their ideals are different, then what they would define as a God given right would also likely be different. And so, for that reason, um, yes, based on our culture and our understanding of God, at least from a Christian perspective in America, yes, those would be considered inalienable God given rights. But maybe somebody from an Arab country who's Muslim might have a different perspective of what those rights would be.
Right. Because like the big one that we have here at least would be the like especially the Second Amendment, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment are such huge things to like you can't even talk with somebody out of a different country about those two things because it's not a concept that they're aware of fully because they're like well no the government's made for safety
Yeah.
and that's like no that's not the foundation of what America believes in. Like we left a big government not to then become that same one for it to then trample on our rights later on.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't even really have the First Amendment as much anymore as we used to, and we're not in Germany where it's illegal to say or sing or Auslander's Raus, where people are getting doxxed and in some cases arrested for singing along to a song at a rave. But we are in a position where the government is currently working with social media networks. I mean, this is all common knowledge as of 2 years ago,
No, of
but to
course.
remove our speech. And so that's like a blatant, outright example. But the government uses coercion at the very least all the time. So the ideal of a First Amendment is an ideal, but it's not a thing that we currently enjoy.
Yeah, not at least like we used to. I mean, we we
Yep.
are we're currently at least somewhat on a platform that doesn't support all those ideals. We do try to play by the rules, of course. But if you wanna if you wanna
Yeah,
if you wanna if you wanna enjoy the cake, I guess you gotta play the game a little bit. So.
and I will play by the rules, of course, tonight. But I will mention that you are on a platform that greatly restricts you, and as you move through different events in the world, there will be certain truths that you're just simply not allowed to speak about that you might otherwise be able to speak about. You could do so currently on Rumble. I think that they're going to claw back and probably fall into the hands of the opposition a little over time. But um, I will say the ability to speak freely on a platform that is operating hand in hand with most likely the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, in that um, they are utilized to curate and create the guardrails of what is acceptable speech is somewhat limiting.
I'm not going to disagree with that. Um,
Move to Rumble.
yeah, I've thought about doing that. I've thought about doing
Yeah.
that. It's just I do have some issues with some of the alt tech stuff. I've talked about it on some other episodes as well, but I can
Mhm.
definitely try it and see how it goes. My biggest issue, at least, is that it feels very um like I go on there, and sometimes there's cool stuff, and then sometimes there's just crap. And then even joining on streams, it's very glitchy and all that stuff. And on YouTube, at least, I don't have that problem. But I might just, for the sake of principle, hop over to Rumble and just see how it goes. Just because, obviously, I would like to talk about everything and not have to worry about like self censoring and all that, because self censoring is cringe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it gives you the ability to not have to constantly think through your sentences ahead of time so as to prevent yourself from stepping on a landmine. Like, I don't know if you can say the R word. I don't know what the limitations are right now.
Right,
With
right. I think as
YouTube.
far
I
as
know
I know,
some
the R word is okay,
Mhm.
but it's one that I mean, we could even jump a little bit. Like Eminem's getting supposedly canceled over his new rap song because he mentioned stuff about like animals or people and being like transracial or something ridiculous like that. So
Yeah.
so who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have the stream open on your end or not, but I saw this hilarious image and I kind of wanted to share it with you. I just anybody that I'm at a loss for words for how retarded this image is. Sorry.
I
I should have a stream open and you should just be able to open it.
You know what though? They might be totally right. Not that a blue wave is necessarily coming in the form of legitimate votes, but that I think stopped mattering a long time ago. In that, even if all of the votes were counted correctly, let's say the the measure by which they were obtained, the legalese that was exercised in 2020 to usurp, in many cases, state constitutional law, which stipulates that state legislators or state legislatures are the ones who have to define what laws are as it pertains to voting, were completely usurped in a number of states, primarily the swing states. I know Pennsylvania was one. I know Michigan was one. I think Wisconsin was one. I'm certain that Georgia was one. But basically, what they did was they got a judge to enact emergency injunctions to change the voting rules so that they could make voting rules that are more beneficial for one party over another. And so
Oh, of course. I mean, we showed that mail-in
we might
voting.
do that again. Yeah, something like that again. And we won't realize it until a year later what they did.
Yeah, yeah. I just seeing this image, it looks like it's AI generated, and
Mhm.
on top of it all, it just the kind of the ridiculousness of like saying this with a straight face. Hope your red
Mhm.
hats double as flotation devices because a blue wave is coming to take our rights or take back our rights. And
Yeah.
I just see like I don't know how anybody with a straight face. I mean, this guy's name is Brooklyn Dad Definite. I think is that last
Defiant,
word.
defiant.
Defiant. Okay, my bad, my bad. And just reading from some of these people, I don't know how with a straight face they could say these things or post these things, and I just I don't know. But part of the show at least is enjoying the cringe, buckling in and just like sucking on a lemon.
Well,
And
that picture is not actually AI generated. That is an actual artist depiction of what happened when Moses spread the sea.
oh,
Yeah,
are
that's
these
that's what it looked like. Yes,
are these the Egyptians? Is that what you're
those
saying?
obviously.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay. I get it. I get it. Um, I also especially like this image as well. Roe wasn't the beginning of women having abortions. Roe was the end of women dying from abortions. And I just, I know, I just, the ridiculousness of some of these things is just like, what the fuck?
Well,
I don't get
yeah,
it.
and
I do not get it.
even even with that, just trying to talk to a politically charged woman about this issue, and explaining that Roe v. Wade was a legal action, and explaining that the rescission of it is a legal action, and what's it based on. They always want to argue whether or not it's moral. It doesn't matter if it's moral. The Supreme Court's job is not to legislate on morality. The Supreme Court's job is to legislate on the Constitution.
Right.
And the 10th Amendment says that anything that is not defined within the Constitution is left to the state, and it's not defined in the Constitution. And so these women always want to argue, well, this is wrong, it shouldn't be done. Well, okay, that's fine if that's your opinion, but the way to go about making that a thing is to have your legislators vote for it. And the Supreme Court finally interpreted correctly that there's nothing in the Constitution about abortion, and therefore that issue would fall back to the states. And so um,
I
there's
do
there's
love
a lot of yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I do love that they tried to use the 14th Amendment, and if you read that amendment, it doesn't have any connection at all with like abortion. It's like the right to privacy, and it's like, okay, you want to talk about HEPA laws? Sure, go for it. Anything outside of that? Nope. Sorry, falls flat.
Well, it's the penumbras, you see. It's the penumbras.
I don't know what that is.
So had the interpretation of the original Roe v. Wade was that the penumbras of the 14th Amendment were what defined abortion as federally legal. Um, they were saying, hey, even though it's not stipulated, a penumbra is basically like the subshadow that's cast. If a big light was over top of an object, you would see a direct shadow, and then the light being wide would cast a shadow on each side that is like a lighter version of a shadow, and that's called a penumbra. And that penumbra is what they were referring to when they were saying, hey, it's not directly implied in here that abortion should be legal through the 14th Amendment, but you can kind of see from the shadow that's cast of the 14th Amendment that there is, in fact, this other meaning that we could infer.
No way.
hmm Here,
Because I'm like reading it right now, and it says, hold on, I kind of fucked up. It's
numbers.
saying It says right here, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That's the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
Nowhere in, if anything, I read the opposite.
Well, yeah, it was in the, I guess, majority opinion. Ira Glasser referred to it as a fundamental right and wrote privacy, penumbra, and emanations. Blah 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 blah. I mean, emanations is another word that's kind of like loosey goosey to describe uh, the legality of this. But I mean, it was a
Right.
politically charged movement in a politically charged time. Another issue, once again, brought about to us by the lovely boomer generation. And it's something that we are finally undoing, hopefully, along with a million other things at the very least. And even at that, I don't even know if that's the best way to go about it. I kind of would rather have like a massive fallout instead of slowly trying to regain power and to regain strength, because we're so far backwards at this point that I think s- how do I put this in YouTube friendly terms? Um, I think that I think that
A
a
bubble.
larger event would be more beneficial to us at this point than to try to regain control of the system that has been completely taken away from us,
I mean,
and
there's
using that system to get back what we have lost.
I was gonna use a bubble as a good kind of an allegory
Yeah.
analogy. I don't know what the difference is, but uh, a bubble is growing and growing and growing. You know, like the housing market, and
Mhm.
eventually it's just all gonna pop and crash. So I feel like with a lot of these other issues that we're talking about, a very similar thing is more than likely going to happen, and it's not going to be pretty. Yeah,
I would
obviously I
imagine
can't.
so.
What? Sorry.
I mean, every nation is always on, well, not every nation's always on its way to a revolution. It might be tomorrow, it might be 100 years from now, but just like every person is always in the process of dying, where they might die tomorrow, they might die 80 years from now, but they're still in the process of dying. Every nation is in the process of going through a revolution, and it does seem like the health of the nation is deteriorating at a somewhat rapid pace.
No, I don't disagree in the slightest. In reading this other, I'm just scrolling around looking at all these awful images, and another one I see as well is the Republican agenda: save the fetus, use the soldier, glorify the CEO, and then on the other side it says starve the child, ignore the vet, bankrupt the employee. And as far as I know, at least, red states do a whole lot more for veterans than blue states ever do. And I don't know why they think that some of these issues are like, oh yeah, Democrats are doing more than Republicans. And it's like, no, in some of these cases, neither guys are doing anything, or only one side's doing something. And is EBT really helping keep kids from starving? Because I think you have to be over the age of 18 to get an EBT card if you really wanted to go that route. How much does it cost to go to a food bank? I don't think it's that.
I don't know. I don't think I can't imagine it costs anything. I
No,
don't
it's not.
think,
It's
but
totally
yeah,
free. It's totally free.
yeah.
Almost every single school now has a food bank. Like starvation is such uh, a ridiculous thing to try and bring up as a political thing, especially in America.
Especially, yeah, especially when the poorer the kids are on average, the fatter they are.
Yeah, it's like, it's
Poverty
not.
these days means you're more likely to be fat than you are to starve.
Yeah, because of the quality of food and whatnot,
Yep.
which I don't think is a controversial thing to say. But well, if you want, we can hop through some of these articles. Um,
Yeah, would love to take the lead.
yeah, so the first one that I have up is from Florida. Not my neck of the woods, but it's kind of interesting to see at least that school choice programs have been wildly successful under DeSantis. Now public schools might close, and I mean, hey, I obviously I think the whole joke around like choice and whatnot. It's like, yeah, one of those things should be school choice, and seeing that there might be enough other alternatives out there that it's closing schools down is kind of funny. So not
Well,
sure.
I'm glad to see it working in Florida. I was raised in a state where they did busing, and that meant that I went to a real hood school when I was a little kid, and that was hell. I got the literal like head in the urinal flushy. Like that was not just a movie thing for me. But I went through that. That was awesome. Then I went to middle school, also a public school, but got brought back into the burbs, and that was kind of hell, but little less because they were now just shipping a bunch of kids in from the city. And then I went to a more private style high school, and it was almost like a sanctuary. It was beautiful. I didn't see a fight my entire 4 years of going there, and it largely made me able to have a successful life. So I'm glad to see this working in Florida, but we can't have only one sanctuary state across the nation. It should be a national uh, faction, not just a Florida's winning type issue.
Oh, yeah, right, and that's kind of the thing to where I don't know if a lot of other governors are then taking note of this stuff that's going on because people do like to point to like a lot of successes out of Florida, which is great and all, but it's like I'm like 2,000 miles away and I don't see any of these perks. Like like the state that I'm in, whenever I was homeschooled, my parents still had to pay taxes on all their kids, even though they were all homeschooled, to like as if they were going to school.
Yeah.
And I did, and I most of my childhood at least, I went to military private schools, which were amazing. And then the
Mhm.
first time that I went to an actual public school, my mom saw how terrible it was because she was a teacher at one of them, and instead of though obviously she saw a stabbing, and then she's like, "No, I can't have my kids being here anymore," and took us out and then homeschooled us for almost all of it, and it was fine. It was fine, and seeing people talk about how great public schools are, and they try to use the whole like, oh, it's to socialize them, you only homeschool your kids if you don't like them, blah blah blah, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't quite see that. I'm sorry. Sounds like a type of brainwashing, to where it's like everybody needs to go to public school like me. It's like, that's not
They're
good.
atrocious now. I went to a town hall meeting the other night because there was a pretty violent attack at this, kind of like the one of the richest public schools in the state. And I'm not even like in that school district, but one of my businesses is, and so I went to this town hall meeting, and it's like a whole bunch of women were up there who are teachers at the school crying and talking about how unsafe they feel. Mind you, they're teaching kindergarten through 6th grade in
They
one of the
should feel
wealthiest zip
safe.
codes in this state, and they're like almost borderline hysterical, some of them, about it. And, some of it might be the dramatic woman effect, but at the same time, if these if these people don't feel safe, like, everybody else down the ladder is probably getting shitting on hardcore. And it just goes to show you how much of a disaster the public school system has been, and that's going to perpetuate the problem forward because now all these parents are trying to find alternatives. At least the good parents are finding alternatives like your parents did
Right.
to get you a different education. And that's going to, once again, pull more good families out and leave the worst of the worst.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing, to where we don't want to like talk about the parent stuff in the slightest. I mean, a slight segue. In California, whenever I lived over there for a little bit, I saw on the TVs, the PBS and the NBCs, and I think even some of the local news channels, they would run ads about parents reading to their kids, and like parents, like the
Yeah.
TV was encouraging parents to just be parents. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on, to where I need this stupid publicly funded program telling parents, "Hey, read to your kids more. Hey, do this more." And then we're looking, and especially in inner city schools, that the kids are like 4 to 5 grades behind in like reading and math, and we're not like in this, are we not just in the slightest looking at, oh hey, what's up with mom and dad, assuming dad's even in the picture, and what are we then doing to like promote it? And I honestly think, at least, that throwing kids in a building for 8 hours a day with a bunch of other kids is a really really bad idea.
Yeah.
And you just need one bad apple. That's all you need.
Yep.
And we don't just have one bad apples in schools anymore. And sometimes, at least, the bullying isn't always so blatant, but there's plenty of ways to bully without, obviously the urinal flushing thing that you brought up earlier. Um, I was bullied plenty in that, in the I think I was in a middle school at the time, and it was girls were doing it, guys were doing it, everybody was doing it. But then whenever I brought it up to the teacher, they're like, "Do you have any marks? Do you have any bruises? Do you have any like?" And then instead they wanted to go with just like hearsay, and I was like, "Great, this is awesome." So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a good time. So, yeah,
yeah, exactly.
it's borderline, in my opinion, borderline child abuse to send your kid through a public school unless you're sending them through like the absolute best public school, because they're going to go to school with a bunch of kids that, if you're listening to this, are much worse than your kid on average.
Oh yeah, I remember going the last 2 years of my high school. I went to a public high school, and it was one of the better ones in my state. I didn't really have any issues then. I more just wanted to get out of it, but it was just because I already had like like a particular style of schooling, and to then have that all be thrown out, and then all this other stuff being thrown in front of me. It was just, it was dumb. There was like social politics. There was like kissing teachers' asses, not literally, but all that going on to where it was
Yeah.
just, I didn't like it. I just wanted to go there to learn, and I didn't even feel like I was learning anything. Instead, it was kind of like almost like the adults from Charlie Brown. Or just they stand up there for 40 minutes and just and then it'd be just reading books and then just being surrounded with students that either didn't want to be there as well or were fucking dumber than a box of rocks, and I just wasn't having it. Not in the slightest.
Well, homeschool or private school, pick your pick.
Yeah. Funny enough, slight segue. Um, there was a movie that was about I think a Christian private school called The Holdovers that I really liked. Just a little
Okay.
pop culture nugget for you.
Hmm.
It takes place in like the 80s. It's a newer film, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Oh, check it out. I got it up now.
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go. How
Paul
quick of you.
Giamatti got fat. Yeah. Okay.
The same Giovanni?
No, no, Paul Giamatti.
Oh, Paul Giamatti. I was like, what are you talking
One
about?
of the actors. One of the actors in that.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you said Giovanni, and then I was like, wait, that's my old co-host. Okay, never
Oh
mind.
no. No, you're having Rorschach tests.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you? Huh? So, well, again, we went or I guess we started out a little bit out of order, but there was apparently the Little Mermaid director says Disney needs to course correct from woke message, and it's kind of funny that one of their most successful directors is saying this from like the 90s. I don't know how many recent movies he's directed, but you would think. I mean, some of these. Oh, he even co-directed Moana, which wasn't the worst movie ever, at least from what I can remember.
Yep.
Um, but it even we can even just go back a little bit to like the 90s with Disney and just show that like The Lion King, Little Mermaid, Aladdin was okay. I don't really remember it that much, but at least it was not so polarizing media. And I don't know what happened.
Well, I think this and companies generally that have been strict adherents to blowing in the wind with culture, Target, Disney, etc., are paying for it now because they went so hard with where they thought culture was going, and they obviously listened to far too many New York City consultants to enlighten them on what the future vision of the world was. That I'm glad to see them suffer. They should suffer if you're going to betray your audience, which for the most part is young parents. Those people, by and large, I mean, I know a slice of them are very woke, to quote this guy,
Right.
and they have ideals that would be hyper progressive based on where they see the world going. But 80% of your audience either doesn't care about this or is strongly opposed. I mean, maybe 20% really cares about this stuff, and that's cool. Maybe you make a branch off for them. But to take your whole company in this direction is just a slap in the face of your customers, and you should suffer. And unfortunately, these CEOs, they all have golden handcuff or parachute packages where they're going to be just fine on the way out,
Of
and
course.
a lot of employees will be the ones that are disenfranchised, so to speak, where they'll lose their jobs if the stock drops, gets cut in half, or revenues go down considerably.
So
So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, as a parent, and I don't know how often you go to the movie theater and all that. I know that's bigger as a I grew up in a bigger family and we didn't always go to the movie theaters, but at least whenever we did, it always seemed like my parents or they didn't try to look too much into the movies, but they just tried to be very There, a different era, obviously, but like Despicable Me is one that comes to mind. There's probably plenty of other movies, but as for you as a parent today, what kind of movie would it take for you to want to take your kids to the theater?
So I actually I can't remember the movie that we went to, but I took my son to this movie. It was like a very vivid. Um, it and but the story was, it was like this boy who went into like this wondrous world, and it looked really cool. And I took my son there, and then the grandpa's talking to like the boy in the movie at one point, and he's like, "You can love whoever you want." And the boy is like a young teenager, and he has a boyfriend. And I was like, what is this shit? Like, I
Did
can't believe I got fooled. So I don't take my kids to the movies. I watch old. I mean, my kid's favorite show is Scooby Doo.
Yeah, that yeah
So
that, that came out in like the 50s. Yeah.
yeah. So you don't need to be on the cutting edge of stuff. Everything after 2015 sucks, because that's when the left really started going hardcore. They started trying to take control of society through the culture, to counterpose. But I don't show my kids really anything after 2015 unless I have vetted it first. There's nothing that I would take them to.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't have any kids, so I don't have that same issue. But it is there is there's a part of me, at least, like, people recommend me movies all the time, and they recommend me new movies, old movies, all the such, and I think, especially introducing your kids to stuff, it doesn't hurt in the slightest to just start all the way back. Like Snow White being your kid's first movie, I don't think is a bad choice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
And you could just go all the way back, and then you could just almost work your way forward if you really really wanted to. But because sometimes I'll go to see a new movie. Most of them kind of suck now, anyways. But there'll be times that I still reminisce about the old movie theater experience, and I try to enjoy it still. But I was watching Alien a couple weeks ago, and seeing that we already peaked with monster movies 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago at this point, is like severely disappointing. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I mean, at this point, it's just like a company just like pushing out potential like money making projects, and I
that
don't.
yeah, I found it. It's called Strange World. That's the
Strange
movie that it
World.
was. Yeah, and it just had like everything. Like the screen starts, and it's they're pushing like
The
uh
message.
yeah, I guess so. They're pushing the message from multiple angles. I won't go into much detail, but anyone that wants to die destroy their brain for 2 hours can go see Strange World.
It's not even 2 hours. It felt like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like an hour 40.
Mhm.
So okay. So even outside of the kind of rough beginning, at least it sounded like it wasn't a very good movie.
Um, there were times when he laughed. It wasn't like a great movie. Um,
Okay, because it says that it's a science fiction, and I like science fiction. I don't like PG science fiction usually, but
I you go ahead and let me know what you think on the next episode. I'll tune in to hear your opinion of it.
I don't know. I got a negative review from an adult, so I don't. I think I'll take it.
Well,
I'll take it seriously. There's a comment here. OMG, did you see Northwest trying to sing in the new night Lion King play? She looks like she's supposed to be a baby Big Bird. No, I didn't see
no,
that. Did
I
not
have
see that.
I have not. Oh, that's your comment. No,
That was a comment that I read. Yeah, did not make
I
that
see.
up. I swear.
Okay.
I tend to avoid a lot of plays like the like Disney on Ice stuff. I saw the joke about Duolingo on Ice, which I thought was just a joke.
Mhm.
There's probably been plenty of other ones, but I try to. I don't tend to do plays or theaters and all that. Maybe I just got traumatized by the ones I saw in my high school and wanted nothing to do with that entire media going forward.
Mhm.
Because it was always one of those things where I'd just be in math class and I'd be bullshitting with somebody, and then some kid would just say the most random, obscure nonsense, and then they would somehow follow it up with, "I'm in theater," every single time. And I was like, all right, all you guys are just deranged, huh? I don't get it.
Well, and they might be, but that's one thing we have to be careful about is right now so much of culture is defined by the media. And I'm not just talking about the news, obviously that, but that actually applies more to like the boomers that we were talking about earlier. But a lot of culture is defined by whatever people are watching on YouTube, whatever people are watching on less and less TV, or if they have Disney Plus or Amazon Prime or Netflix. But we need to be careful to not fully relinquish the culture of theater and the arts over to these people because we think it's gay or whatever. Um, there is a very, very good use for controlling the media because it helps you control the narrative. And if we relinquish entertainment, we have relinquished control of anyone under the age of 40.
You think it's that influential?
Massively. Yes. I think even if not outright, there are subversive messages that are sent into your brain constantly that one wouldn't really pick up on. Um, but I mean, there are a handful of podcasters out there who do study up this kind of thing where they'll look at certain media and they will show you the deleterious influence on society that is caused by certain pieces of film or certain pieces of video games in some cases, and how it affects people's overall perspective and outlook.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know it's massive. It's where people get their guiding principles from these days.
Yeah, which sucks.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, sometimes. What I think is good is the Zoomers are like both the most base generation ever and simultaneously the most out to lunch liberal wackos of all time. But the reason that they're very based is because it's in an adverse reaction to what they see a lot of their peers doing, taking the agenda hook, line, and sinker. That agenda that is being pushed upon them in the media that I was talking about earlier. And they're looking at that, and they're looking at kids with 18 different septum piercings and a a bottle full of depression pills that they just had prescribed to them, and they're thinking that kind of sucks. Maybe I'll go in a different direction. And they do. And they come over to the right, which is good. But um, the
I
millennials have been completely captured by media.
Yeah, because I have a very strong disdain for millennials. I don't know why that is, and I've been trying to figure it out for a while. But like anybody over the age of 30, like
Hmm.
well, especially like 30 to like 40, I can't stand them. I don't know why. I've tried to figure it out, and I don't know if it's a not like a projection of like potentially seeing what I have to deal with in 10 years, but
Hmm.
maybe it's just an annoying age.
Yeah.
I've tried to figure it out, and I don't know what the issue is.
Well, it's because we're weak. I did just get an emergency tornado warning, by the way, so I might
Oh,
get family coming down into the basement to visit me. But nonetheless, aside from that, I will say one of my friends sent a meme to me the other day that said it was basically like the weak men create hard times create strong men meme, but it was about the boomers. And I said to him, and he basically said to me like, yeah, they're not the they're not the hard men. I was like, neither are we though. Like we have taken the helm of what they have given us, and we've completely abdicated all duty and responsibility to restore what is just and right in the world. And instead, we have taken their mantle and let them continually destroy the system that we're going to have to raise our kids in and send our country further into debt and like, further let massive amounts of people into our country who shouldn't be here and are destabilizing our society. Um, we're we are the hard times have not hit yet, and we're riding it out and perpetuating being weak men. And I'm hoping that the hard times hit soon enough so that you guys can be the strong men because our time is pretty much come and gone. We're out of physical fighting shape at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of I'm at least at this point with seeing everything that's going on. My mom was a pretty heavy prepper, and I there's a part of me to where it's like, oh, can I fix it or should I just hunker down and do my own thing? And I'm very conflicted on which one I should go with.
Can you fix like society or hunker down in which way?
Well, so people always complain about like, oh, are you in politics? Are you in this? Are you like actively in your community? Like like that there are things that people try to say like if you're complaining about these problems, you should try and go out and fix them. And even if I have a solution for something, and if I try to apply that to my community, not to see that as like, oh, well, I'm doing something and it's not then going to fix everything. It's like a drop in the bucket kind of
Mhm.
situation. I try not to look
Well,
at things
yeah.
like that.
I mean, I'm done trying to fix society. You go out with my perspective and try to help your community, you'll get castigated as a Nazi. And so it's like, all right, you know what? You continue your roller coaster down, and I likewise have more than a year's worth of food sitting next to me in crates. So I'm equally prepper style to an extent. Um, and I have lots of natural food growing on my property that could keep things going much longer than that if needed. But um, yeah, I'm more than happy to just ride it out at this point and not try to change the world because I'm not in a movement. I'm not opposed to joining a movement. Once you join a movement, you do kind of confine and constrain your ideological boundaries because they have to move within the vision of that movement. But once we do see a movement that is large enough to take hold and take over whatever it is that we have, and I used to think that might be Trump. I unfortunately don't anymore. Um, once we see that kind of movement, I would be happy to join it, but I'm not going to waste my time and get myself demonized in the meantime when I could be and should be trying to prepare my family for the best possible outcome out of whatever comes about.
Yeah, and I do not disagree with a lot of that stuff. I mean, as of now, I think a mix of both wouldn't hurt. And in joining movements, anyways, seeing from like what today we consider movements. On one side, they're full of like feds, and they eventually get demonized, and then on the other side, it's full of a bunch of whack nut jobs that barely even know what they're talking about. So
Right.
I
Exactly.
so I do have a hard time as well trying to join those things because they don't ever at least they don't ever seem to work out the way that they claim they should.
Well, I mean, even if you join a good movement and it is any way, shape, or form anti-government or anti-establishment, the government is going to do whatever they can to either insert a wacko into your midst that will cause really bad publicity for your movement and probably or possibly get a bunch of you arrested and shut down. Um, or they will, if not just directly cause, they'll find a way to enable and connect bad people with your movement. And if they're unsuccessful in doing that, Enrique Tarrio is in jail for 20 years because he had some conversations. He wasn't even at J6, but due to J6, he's in jail for 20 years. So um, moving against uh, the status quo is dangerous these days. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I guess it sounds kind of cowardice, but um, you can serve your family a lot better if you're not in a prison cell.
Yeah, I mean, playing the safe route obviously is probably the best way to go, but then I mean, we're then looking at the other side, and we do have some other articles that we can scroll through about the
Yeah.
at least the immunity sometimes that gets placed and like the double standard. So then
Hmm.
we try to play those games, and then even then it doesn't quite work out. Like I've been talking a lot about the pro-Palestinian protests that's been going on, and
Yeah.
seeing the like ridiculousness of it, to where it's never from a place of, oh, we have these solutions and everything will work out. Instead, it's, I'm going to sit here in a tent and I'm not going to eat for 2 weeks, and it's your problem now.
Hmm.
So instead of just coming from a place of, yes, I'm going to use all 8 of my brain cells to rub together with all these other supposed adults, and we're going to come to a solution. Instead, their immediate thought is just, oh, we're just going to do the activism route. And sure, people are talking about them. Is anything that they want done getting done? No, not in the slightest. I remember a couple weeks ago they tried to give the big old middle finger to Google and a lot of those other companies, and then those big old companies told them, okay, and you're blacklisted from every single one of our partners, including ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you guys tried playing the game, and then you want to cry about it. So, which is it?
Well, and but even with this, like, yeah, there's a lot of them, but you can see where real power exists and where it doesn't in these protests compared to the BLM protests of 2020. So real power was funding BLM. Real power was pushing for almost a quasi revolution at that point in time. I mean, it
Right.
was a sizable movement. There was a lot of funding going into this. Hell, even Coca Cola and major Fortune 500 companies were funding it, let alone a whole bunch of dark back money or backroom shadowy figures. Um,
Of
with
course.
this, you have some Arabian funders. I heard recently the Qatar probably has a network of people tied to this, as does CARE, etc., which is Center for American Islamic Relations or something. But this protest is comical in its
Oh yeah.
in how poorly it's being run and operated compared to BLM.
Uh, I was talking about like the hunger strike as well. I
Yeah,
I had videos of like young ladies with like sheets of paper like shaking from like how kind of like cold they are because they haven't eaten, so they're fat in their bodies lessening,
yeah.
and they're all reading it and they're like, our head department so and so's, they're not listening to our demands and we're starving, and it's like, what are you guys doing? Either eat, like eat and keep going, or shut the
Yeah.
fuck up. I don't. What else do you want?
Well, yeah, it's dumb. I mean,
Short
I
sighted.
fast once a week, and I did a 48-hour fast last week, and I was dead by the end of it. I can't imagine what these people are going through if they're going for that long. But I mean, the playbook is you don't starve yourself. Uh, the playbook that works apparently is you burn down cities, and
Right.
because the power structure will not allow them to do that, they can't do it. But um, they're as a result of them not being in the spotlight in the favor of power, they're not really going to get very far. They're not they're not going to do anything. I mean, I guess it's nice that they think they're doing what is best, but um, they're not getting anywhere with what they're doing.
No, but I definitely want to document a lot of these things going on as just a like what not to do, obviously, and
Yeah.
obviously also get a little bit of a giggle out of some of these things that they think work, like all of these, at least from what I can tell, and this is all speculation, but these people are all just sitting in tents doing whatever, and instead they just have a bunch of banners and papers that are supposed to spread their message instead, like revolution until victory. That's a red BLM fist.
Yep.
I don't know what divest means, but I'm guessing it's the opposite of invest.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they then want. I mean, they tried to cancel Starbucks. There's probably plenty of other companies that they've tried to as well, but
Yeah.
it is very, very, very funny to see this. I think last time we checked in on them, there was 3,000 arrests that were done.
Hmm.
So I mean, some of them are getting in enough trouble to get in trouble with the law, but they're not as protected. There's also a lot less of them, I think,
Hmm.
because it's all happening in like campuses instead of just everybody.
Right. Yeah. And nobody really cares if people protest at a campus. That doesn't
N-
affect me.
no, not in the slightest. I think if I were to look at protests near me, they'd all be at campuses too. They wouldn't even be at like a city center or whatever.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just have an article about them still going on at Stanford, and then there was some guy, don't know who this guy is, but ex Shortland Street star ends hunger strike for Palestine after 19 days.
That's crazy.
That's a long time.
That's so crazy. Yeah.
What does that exactly? I just don't get what that does for their message. That's my issue.
Nothing. I mean, you're taking, just like with that red fist, the revolution fist. You're
Yeah.
taking washed up old ideals. You know that a strike may have worked for Gandhi because nobody was really familiar with that, and he was famous, but nobody knows who this guy is, and nobody he could. I mean, we're so impersonalized. He could die of hunger, and nobody would care, honestly. And his enemies would cheer it on, and they'd probably, through their control in the media, spin it into something that's positive anyway. So it's just idiocy and poor planning. These people need to read Rules for Radicals and figure out how to lead a proper counter revolution.
Hold on, don't give him any ideas now.
Well, I don't think it's going to take them very far, even if they have the ideas.
I don't know if they
They
can
don't seem
read.
quite competent. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a funny it's a definitely a funny thing to look at. It's a lot more harmless than what happened like 4 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
So we already talked about the contraception access, which I think is so vague. I don't understand that. Is it like
Contraception access. Yeah.
yeah? Is it like do you guys want to make it free? Do you guys want to like what are we trying to do here?
Well, I haven't read the article, but they're always going to spin it in the most egregious manner that they possibly could. I mean, they did the same thing with healthcare, right? So,
Oh, of course.
uh, I would need to study up on this deeply before I could come to any formal conclusions. But you know, headlines are designed to infuriate or antagonize.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted the quote right here that contraception is healthcare, essential healthcare that millions of people rely on.
Right.
And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's not. And if it is something that people rely on, you need help.
Right.
Like plain and simple. It's not a. It should not be something that you focus on in the slightest. But
If you're not self-reliant enough to get your own form of contraceptive, though, I think you should be, and you're having sex, I think you should be sterilized, because if you're so irresponsible that you can't utilize your own form of contraception while having sex, assumed premarital, whatever in this instance,
right.
right. that then maybe contraception would be a benefit. Maybe we just chemically sterilize all these people so that the stupidest among us cannot procreate. I'm not
Yeah,
saying abortion. I'm saying sterilization.
I I mean, you can like go to like Walgreens or whatever, and you can pretty much get every single form of it for well under $20.
Yeah.
And I know that people at least point to the like no, no, or was it like 80 or 60% of Americans can't even get their hands on like $500,
Mhm.
and they're probably all different cases for why, but it's I I remember talking with people that like went to college and all that, and they're like, yeah, we used to get like all sorts of different forms of contraception all the time without any sort of like extra money or like having to pay
Yeah.
for it. So it's one of those things that I doubt, even if this bill does or doesn't get passed, like that kind of stuff hasn't stopped. And I doubt any Republican is like, no, we need to ban contraceptions. I really doubt that.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard that, but they will spin it in any way they can, and I guess it's their right to do so, but that's why they win, is because they will cheat and they will lie and they will misuse the truth, and the right is too pious and moral to do the same, and as a result, the right is always on defense and the left is always advancing the ball.
Ew, did you just use sports terminology?
You could consider it whatever ball you want to. But yes, yes, I sure did. I know that Zoomers don't know anything about sports. That was probably inappropriate of me. I'm sorry.
Also, apparently, we don't dance anymore. I heard that recently. So
Yeah,
we don't like sports and we don't like dancing.
yeah. But well, let's just say advance the agenda then. But the right has not advanced any agenda in my entire life, including the reversal of Roe v. Wade. That was not advancing agenda. That was just getting things back to status quo, kind of.
Kind of. Yeah, well, hopefully we see more W's in the future, but until then.
Uh, Well, I'm hoping for more of a revolutionary change than a small incremental wins style
Yeah, well,
change.
idealism, of course, but
Yeah.
a slight little segue here. Apparently, there's a spider that has a migration through the air, and they're headed their way towards the East Coast.
Nice. That's pretty awesome. I like
Yeah.
spiders. Bring them on up.
In my state, we have a migration of tarantulas every year. So,
I don't like that big of a spider, but yeah, that's cool.
yeah, I saw some photos of I think they do it in the fall, and it was they're pretty beefy. They were not little,
Yeah,
but
I imagine.
uh, it's always funny to just bring up the fact that there are so many different types of freaky looking animals that have so many different ways of traveling. I mean, we have spiders that like roll down hills. We have all sorts of wacky, silly stuff, but this is more to break up the all the political stuff. Talk a little bit about
I
bugs.
appreciate it. Airborne spiders. I'm gonna send this to my sister-in-law. She hates spiders. So
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, let me know.
uh,
Let me get an update on that reaction.
I will let you know. Airborne spiders. I'll put it in my search now.
Yeah, it says headline this week: a warning of the arrival of a venomous spider as big as a human palm that travels through the wind and is heading to the DC area. But there's no need to be alarmed. These creepy crawlies won't create scenes reminiscent of the movie Arachnophobia. That's a movie that came out recently, and I've not seen it.
Mhm.
You definitely do not need to run to the hills in fear of the Juro spider, said Mike the bug guy. That's sad. Although it is venomous, the spider is a docile creature, and experts believe its fangs are too small to break through the skin of humans or pets.
Hmm.
So this is all just alarmism, but it is still funny to see how huge these spiders are and how freaky it would be if you like got in its web or if one landed on you. Because people are scared of spiders because it's an irrational fear.
Usually, I
Almost
mean,
always. Almost always.
poi- poisonous spiders. I live near a place where there's black widows, and Ration would say you should be afraid of them. But to your point, yes, there. I don't think there's been a black widow death in America in the last 50 years.
Yeah, we have an
That might,
anti-venom for it.
yeah, yeah. So,
And from what I can tell, at least, they're not very aggressive. The ones that you have to worry about are the aggressive spiders.
yep.
That's the whole thing about like younger snakes versus like older snakes. The younger ones we're told are more dangerous because they don't know how to control their amount of venom, which I don't know how true that is or not. But it's one of those things to where we're very simple minded, at least in terms of survival tactics, because it's not really a thing we have to worry about all too often.
Well, I get down on spiders. If I have a spider near me, that means it's killing bugs that I don't want near me. So bring them on.
Yeah, I'd rather see spiders than whatever they have going on.
Hmm.
But a little bit back into some politics. Hunter Biden's ex-wife slash ex-girlfriend testify about drug use in a gun trial.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, so they are softballing this as well as they possibly could, utilizing the charges that are as far away from his dad's culpability as humanly possible. This whole thing's a show. This trial is being held in Delaware, I believe, and in Delaware, the Biden family is kind of like little mini royalty. So even if he gets 10 people to find him guilty, he's going to get at least a person or two to quit. Um, just on political bias, and
I'm
Delaware is a bit of a BS political state as is.
Oh yeah, isn't that the state that everybody like puts their business what's it called? They try to run all their businesses through Delaware because there's some sort of like
Yeah.
ease
I,
or less taxes or whatever. I can't remember what the exact
it
reason, but I thought
it's
Delaware was
the
one of those.
yes, Delaware is the corporate state because the Delaware Chancery Court is the court that looks over businesses, and they are very favorable to corporations to the point where if a person tries to sue a corporation, it will usually fall to the benefit of the business, not to the individual.
Oh, lovely. I'm
Yeah.
reading right here. I don't know the specifics or not, but also on the stand on Wednesday was Gordon Cleveland, who sold Hunter Biden the firearm. Cleveland testified that Hunter Biden did not seem confused by the form, although defense attorney Abe Lowell pressed him on the condition of the form at the center of the case and the rules required for any change made after submission. That's a ridiculous thing to try and bring up.
Well, I will say, so admittedly, I have filled out one of these forms before, and I got put immediately on the rejection list. And I was banned from Cabela's because I didn't fully read the question. I had gotten into a fight when I was in college, and it was on my record for a little. And I half read this question, which was, "Have you ever been accused of like a crime of um, like assault?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I got into a fight in college, so I marked it off." And he's like, "You're rejected." And I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Read this question." And it was like a domestic violence against your spouse. And I was like, "No, no, no, that I didn't read the question fully, so I needed to go to the police, get my criminal record, and then bring it back to Cabela's to get off of their restricted list." But
Yeah, you definitely should have read that fully.
yeah, I had been through it so many times before that I was just like, "Yeah, I know this form." So
Because
the form can be a bit confusing.
oh yeah, like I remember reading it, and I just kind of had like I kept asking the guy because I was like, I really want this gun, and I don't want to fuck this up, and he just was like, oh yeah, this is kind of confusing. He's like, well, he just pretty much was like, these should all be no's unless you've done X, Y, and Z. And then I was
Yep.
like, well, I haven't done X, Y, and Z, so I'm gonna put no in all these. And then he's like,
Yeah.
this one is kind of confusing. You have to put yes. I was like, okay,
Hmm.
I'll put yes. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Why can't we make it a little more simple? But the Democrats want to claim that we don't even have those. So,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, trying to press the guy that sold Hunter Biden the gun is so funny because all that guy does is just hand you a sheet of paper, take that sheet of paper, punch it into a computer, double check with the FBI, get it back, and if it's a ding, it's a good to go, and then you then just charge them the amount for the firearm, and it is now theirs.
Yeah.
That's almost all the states work. So to then try and
Yeah.
press the guy that just handed Hunter Biden a piece of paper is so dumb.
Yeah. Well,
But
Delaware court system.
yeah, I was like, I probably don't like lawyers. People have told me in the past that I should try and be a lawyer, but it's just because I like to ask a lot of questions,
Because you're an
and
a-hole.
for more from a more personal aspect, I get told that I like to argue a lot, but it I don't know if I could then go up to I don't know if I could do this kind of slimy behavior.
Yeah, you could if it was your job.
I don't know if I could do that.
Well, you would have to find a new job then. But yeah, I mean, people will find all sorts of mental gymnastics to jump through to ensure their income. I mean, it happens in every industry.
Oh yeah, no, I believe that. I just in terms of sliminess, I feel like there's way more higher, or I feel like anybody that's been like messed up by the court system definitely doesn't like the court system, but then the people that make out of the court system with money and all that, they're like, oh no, the court system's great. So like
Well,
if it benefits you, you like it.
to that point also, anybody listening to this, that not just don't just stay away from the arts, get into it, but also get into law if you can. One thing we're severely lacking on the right is competent lawyers. Um, they all they all seem to get absorbed into big corporate law if they're good and on the right, but we need actual lawyers that will fight and defend people like the J6 prosecutors. I mean, do you remember Jacob Chansley, the guy who wore the big headdress on January 6th? His lawyer, I think, said like in court that he's an idiot or something like that,
Oh,
or dumb. Like, so so
that's not a good thing to say on record.
no, we need more people in the legal field at least. So
Yeah,
you should become a lawyer. Stop not being a lawyer.
but I got to go to cringe college.
Well, so be it. You gotta do it.
If I were to be one, I'd probably try and be like a self defense lawyer. I think that would be fun.
That, or I mean, one thing one of my buddies is doing, he's helping people find plots of land in areas that have laws that are favorable to setting up like insular communities to an extent. I won't say compound necessarily, but he's helping people position themselves in places where they will not have to interact with the outside world as much. And that is greatly beneficial because that's complicated law. And if you have one misstep with that as you're setting up one of these communities, it can bring everything down for dozens of families.
Yeah, I know that homesteading in a lot of areas is frowned upon. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
like in some places, you can't have a building without it being connected to like central power or whatever. It's like, why is it a
Really?
law?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Huh.
why can't I make my own electricity? Why can't I make my like we have well systems? That's fine. Why can't we have something similar with like electrical?
Right.
It's probably because it's a big business.
Yeah.
Uh,
That.
did
That.
I say the wrong thing?
That. No, that's true. The government wants you as reliant on it as possible.
Yeah. No, that doesn't stop with our energy.
Yep.
Well, I kind of ran out of the articles. Not a whole lot, honestly, going on with the current state of affairs.
Not this week. Too bad you didn't
No.
get me last week. We would have had lots to talk about.
Yeah, last week would have been fun. Are you paying attention to any of the Nick Rekieta stuff?
I uh I saw what happened to him. It's a shame. Mostly because he has kids involved.
Exactly.
But honestly, I never was like a big fan of him, and so it's, I'm sad to see the collateral damage. But if somebody's going to be swinging and doing a bunch of cocaine,
Bite in the
you're
butt.
you're playing with fire. You're gonna get burned.
Yeah, I was watching Mr. Mediker's stream talk about just I guess Rekieta shouted him out and he went on like a drunken rant for like 2 hours just about how much he loves him. And
Yeah.
it's so funny. If you can find it on YouTube still, it's a kind of a long watch, but it's gold. I think it's totally worth it. I like the whole Sonichu conspiracy theory.
What is that? Oh, yes, yes, yes. The
Yeah.
the Chris Chan
Yeah, the
necklace.
Christian medallion.
Yeah.
And the fact that that medallion has messed with so many people beforehand and Rekieta to just take it and wear it and just it's just so funny seeing that angle on it. But
Yeah. I'm
that's
gonna
like the
try to
biggest
buy
thing.
one so I
You know,
can
test fate.
send it to my enemies. No.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I was about to say I was like, are you gonna lock it away? Destroy it like the ring?
No. Not unless there's some benefit to me that's obvious.
Less evil in the world maybe?
I don't think we're heading in that direction.
Yeah. Um well that was kind of unless you have another discussion that you think we might debate on. I don't know how much longer you got with us.
I got probably 12 minutes or so. I didn't really know what to expect with this show, so I appreciate you having me on. Happy to talk about anything you're curious about, but or anything you want to talk about. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
I was like, man, usually I would expect like okay, an outline of what we're going to talk about or what I should be prepared for. But
this is
alas,
only the
you're
fifth.
keeping me on my toes.
Yeah, this is only episode 5, so we're kind of fresh to this all.
All
Um,
right, well, good stuff.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of showed you the show that I used to be a part of, and
Yeah.
I I ideally would like to. I mean, what? I think politics and culture and all that are important to talk about, but so many other people I feel like are doing that to try and then like cut out my own niche with these things. I definitely gotta like I guess figure that out. That's probably the best way to put it. So
Hmm.
news and all that stuff is easy, is I feel like is pretty easy to go on about, but if I can if I could definitely do something to where it's like holy shit, you know, this is a thing now, and for sure. But
Well,
I do think it's important.
well, I mean, culture is absolutely important. It's the direction of the world, and where culture goes, that's the life experience that our children will have. And if you're a parent, that's the most important thing in the world to you is trying to create a situation for your kids that's better than what you had. How you evaluate that is, a whole ball of wax that we don't need to unravel. But um, for every parent, they are hoping that the culture goes in a way that will make their children's lives better. And I think for a lot of young parents right now, it doesn't feel like it's going in that direction. And so that's where I am hopeful that we'll see some massive change.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I think about sometimes, to where it's like, oh, geez, I really would like a family. I'd really like a place that I could be safe with my kids and not have
Mhm.
to worry about who they're hanging out with or what their influences might be, and instead I could just let them kind
or
of just be kids.
or who their teacher is, yeah.
Right.
Um,
I ideally it'd be their mother, but you know,
right,
even
right.
finding a lady that is pro homeschooling, especially to the same degree I am, isn't easy. So
Well, the pendulum goes back and forth, and I think we're probably due for a little bit of a course correction. But as Devin Steck says, zoom out the graph and find the trend. The trend is certainly going in a bad direction, even though we have these little wins here and there. Um, but there's nothing else that you can do at the end of the day. Like I have young people that I know. I know this one girl who is a phenomenally capable young lady, and she doesn't want to get married and have kids. And I'm crestfallen in talking with her because I'm sitting there thinking, you are the ideal person to become a parent. You're going to create kids that will have a positive impact on the world, and you are taking those good people and the potential that they will bring to the world away from my children. And I'm almost, a bit agitated about the fact that she doesn't want to have kids just because I mean, and
is she like
she's
black pilled or
on having kids, she is, yeah.
oh,
But I
okay?
mean, at the same time, I guess she's been involved in a hedonistic culture, and she's very successful with her work, and so she goes out to, well, I won't dox where she goes. She goes out to the mountains and skis all winter, every winter, and just kind of enjoys living the life that she can.
That sounds
But
very
my
feminist minded.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. But she's going to get to her 40s probably, and start to have second thoughts about what she's doing, and it's going to be too late by then. So,
Crazy cat
one
ladies.
one one of the massive culture shifts that I would like to see is a return to traditional family values. That sounds like so old school and cliche, but
Age
you know, we
yourself
have
80 years. Yeah.
we have lots of good people that aren't having kids, and all it's doing is it's causing the world to go to shit, because good people not having kids means that all the bad people that are having kids are just going to outwash and overrun the good people, as I mean, as is currently happening, obviously.
I was
but
going to
but
say
it's
the
going
cope.
to get so much worse.
Yeah, I was going to say the cope that I've heard is um the left is having less kids and the conservatives are having more kids, but as far as I know, the birth rate is going down regardless of that. So,
Well, yeah, true, but I mean, also, the conservatives may be having fewer kids, but they are importing a whole bunch of people that are having tons of kids. and
True.
they do not come with conservative mindsets.
Oh no, absolutely not. Yeah, most. I think I don't know if I've talked too much about my issue with assimilation on this channel, but it's one of those things to where even some of these people they don't even like. I feel like they're almost like a third option in some of these ideas to where it's not even like, oh yeah, they're voting Democrat or whatever else. Sometimes they're just here to be here, and they're just like, oh, just the guy in charge just told me to come over here. So
Yeah.
no, it's a
Well,
mess. It's a
yeah,
mess.
I'm with you. I live in an area where a huge, I mean, it's like a bunch of townships near each other, and some of the townships are just straight up Mexican, and they don't speak English. You go there, they might be able to get by with a little bit of broken English and talking with you,
Right.
but you know, to the extent that uh they're American, okay, that's cool. But for the most part, it's like, look, I know a lot of you guys just got here and you're here illegally and you're taking over real estate and you're not participating or enhancing the culture. You're effectively just balkanizing yourselves off into your own little faction. And
It's not helping anybody.
no, it's not helping anybody at all.
No.
So
Oh, I've begun slowly waking up at least the idea that uh people are, yeah, well people as a whole I feel like aren't as conservative as they used to be, but then on top of it as well, the the young ladies that I do interact with every now and then, they're not very to be fair, I don't live in a very conservative state, but to even bump into a lady that has 80 to 70% of the values that I do is so rare. So trying
well,
to
yeah.
yeah, so trying to like, oh, I'll give him a chance is not, it's rough,
You don't need them to have the same values that you do. That you need them to respect you and know that
which is a value.
you are going, well, I guess. They need to know that you are going to make the right direction and lead in the right way. Ideally, you want a woman who is apolitical, not strong right or left,
Of
because
course.
you're going to have purity spiraling arguments if you're both far to the right, and if she's on the left you're going to have a divorce where she takes the kids. um but if she's apolitical, I think you have the best chance overall. But
That's honestly whenever I do like ask somebody like those kind of questions, and if I get a I don't have a horse in the race or I don't really care, that is the best answer you can give. So
yeah.
I agree with that.
Well, what it also shows is that she's willing to hear you out and hear your opinion, and even that is a demonstration to an extent of willingness to see how you lead, even if it's just through a conversation.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I think that there, I mean, politics is something that I try to. I took a break from it for a little bit, but it's something that I still try to pay attention to, and I think still does matter. I don't try to pay attention to like, oh, did you hear about Trump this week, or did you hear about this week, blah blah blah. But some of the bigger issues I still try to pay attention to. Like, obviously, I'm never going to stop caring about like self defense rights. There's plenty of other ones as well, but it's then one of those things that I want to bring up with the person that I want to raise kids with and have a family with. And if we're clashing on issues, it's gonna make it very difficult to then be like, oh yeah, I really want to raise a family with this person now.
Well, I would say with my wife, we don't talk politics at all. Um, and we have a great marriage. But the reason that we both got married was because she does come from a more traditional background. And when asked, like, what do you want to do? She said, I want to be a mom. Like, that's
Super simple.
what I want my job to be. And I was like, okay, I can definitely work with this. You know, everything else we can overcome, but you have the foundation of what is necessary. Um, so you don't need to go into politics. Um, I think to an extent, if you're getting deeply involved with your female counterpart in a political discussion, I think you're already giving her too much agency. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, I think it's an important. I think it's one of those things to where I pop the question and I hope for one or two answers,
Mhm.
and just like, oh, who are you voting for? Blah blah blah. And if I hear I'm not voting, or if I hear I don't care,
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah,
perfect. That's exactly what I'd like. So
yeah.
no, I think we agree. I think we agree on it. I just you need to shit test them to make sure they're not a lefty. So
Yes, I mean, yeah, but you can come to that pretty quickly, I believe.
they tend to be not super quiet about it. So
No, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Is you if you can't pick up on that in the first date, then you should get yourself tested for autism.
I have been told I can be dense at times. So might have to might have to go around on that. But well, I thought this was a very good show. I hopefully there wasn't too many curveballs thrown your way.
No, it's good. This is fun. This is like this is like a choose your own adventure for me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'd like to even throw more curveballs if I do ever have you on the show again. So
Yeah, I'm all about it. Yeah, I you'll just have to give me a list of what I'm not allowed to talk about ahead of time. That's probably the smarter way to do it, especially if we're on YouTube.
well, if we go into Rumble, or I think Kick might be an option too, that might not even have to be a thing. But I hate that. Tune in, everybody. That'll be something to work on in the future. So,
All right.
I'm going to end the stream, and then if you have a couple minutes, then maybe we can discuss something afterwards. But
Good stuff. Well, yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks for anybody that's hearing my voice right now. And yeah, we can catch up for a couple after.
okay, okay. Any other parting words, or is that kind of it?
Just go out and get married and have some kids.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it, do it. That's for sure. But thank you guys for that. AC writes, "Happy belated beta. I mean birthday." That's funny. No, it is not my birthday today, AC. But
Cheese day. Cheese day.
yeah, it's cheese day. But I guess maybe that's a joke. But
Yeah,
uh,
that's the joke.
thank you guys all for popping in and messing with us. I'll talk to you guys later.